Well, you know, when you land, the first impression you have are the custom officers. And the first impression you get is a maréchaussée. So you think, oh my God, I got to the Netherlands here. And of course, the second impression you have is this is not the Netherlands at all. There's nothing to see with the Netherlands, to be very honest, when you see what this is living and is thriving here. My impression now is that the island is full of so many opportunities. It's about time the islanders realize that it has so many opportunities. Because when I was arriving, I had a briefing on a lot of problems that were around. And when I'm leaving, I'm having a portfolio of opportunities I'm seeing. So, to be very honest, I think people have to kind of wake up and see what they have. And it's more than the great spirit of the people here and the friendship and the openness and the easy contact and the friendliness and all of that. I mean, you have an awful lot of natural resources. You have a lot of opportunities, both on land and on sea, that clearly is not being looked at with the right glasses. I think there is a very uncomfortable conclusion in my mind after 30 years of being very actively involved in the green economy, is that whatever is good for you and whatever is good for the environment is expensive.
Yes.
Now, this doesn't make any sense.
Yes.
I mean, we should not support an economy where what is good is expensive, what is bad is cheap.
Yes.
Because in the end of the day, the large majority of the population cannot afford the expensive, and so therefore they're doing the bad thing, and therefore they're helping destroy the environment.
Yes.
And that all for the sake of competitiveness and globalization. So when you have a small island like Bonaire, of course, when you want to be green, what does it mean? It means that you're going to buy organic food which has been shipped in from Chile? Or does it mean that you're having solar panels which have been shipped in from China?
Yes.
I mean, we have to realize that the green idea started out 30, 35 years ago with a great mindset. A great mindset that was, we got to do something about sustainability. Duradeiro. We have to be sustainable. But in practice, we made it impossible. And of course, governments try to intervene by having subsidies and by raising taxes. And this correction may be necessary, but it's not good enough to steer society towards sustainability. And therefore, I'm looking at the blue economy. Now, blue is more than just being different than green. Blue means, in the first place, you start with what you have.
Yes.
You use what is locally available. And very often, we don't see what we have available. Second, though, we will always use what we have with multiple purposes. We never do one thing for one reason only.
Yes.
We always do it for multiple reasons.
Yes.
And that is how we can get this efficiency up. Because one of the problems of the present world economic thought, I say thought, not what should be done, but thought, is that we have to cut costs all the time.
Yes.
We have to be cheaper all the time. What I'm saying is that that is leading to economies of scale, standardization, and massive junk production. What we're in need of is actually generate more value. More value, some of it which can be monetarized, and other values which can never be monetarized.
Yes.
Like biodiversity or topsoil regeneration. We cannot monetize that. I mean, that is something that is so precious to us.
Yes.
But we should never ever put a price on it. So the blue economy therefore needs innovations. We have to innovate. We can't do it the same way as we've done before. Doing a little bit better is just not good enough. We have to do much better, and most likely we have to do different. So the blue economy therefore proposes that we build up a whole range of initiatives, using what is locally available, generating more value, and securing that we respond to the basic needs first and foremost. I mean, I'm not in the business of making plasma TVs cheaper. I am actually leading a foundation so that we can have more water, better food, healthier housing, much better healthcare, and renewable energies cheaper and in abundance instead of scarce and very expensive. When we were a child, we had one great strength, is that for any child, 3, 5, 6 years old, before they go to school, any child will consider that fantasy is reality.
Yes.
Now, when you want to get out of a situation you don't like, you better use your fantasy for a moment. Now, in fantasy, we have two avenues. Some fantasy remains fantasy and will never ever become the truth.
Yes.
Some fantasy can turn into a vision. Let me explain that to you with a concrete example.
Yes, please.
If I look at a whale and my fantasy is that I'm going to fly with the whales,
Yes.
in my mind I can fly with the whales, but I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. Maybe in 2 million years when the whales have become birds, then it could happen. But in the meantime, I don't think we're going to have to see that. But then we look at the whale and we realize the whale is pumping 1,000 liters of blood every pulse with 6-fold direct current during 80 years without any maintenance.
Yeah.
Now that's vision. Because we don't have pumps like that. Our pumps consume at least 100 times more for the same function. But don't tell me it's impossible, because I got 1 million of them in the sea.
Yes.
And so that is vision. And so what we need when we're trying to look for solutions towards the future, we need to source fantasy and learn how to translate fantasy into vision.
Yes.
And then you need to put it into practice, and practice what was required, science. You need a scientist who can say, yes, because the way that pump functions is this and this and this and this, and we can actually do it as well. We can redesign our pumps. Now that is science, and then you get into engineering.
Yes.
In order to implement, you need to take risks though. All around the world, the same challenge is happening. That on one hand we're asked to be patient, on the other hand we are impatient.
Yes.
I mean, this is the same that happens with a child. The child is always impatient. The child is never patient. I mean, impatience. But in order to respond to the child's patience, in order to get more patience, what do we need to give him? Surprise. We need to give surprise. We need to give things that we say, I didn't know. Like when I walked to Lagoon,
Yes.
and I had once see Salicornia. I'm saying, what are you doing with this? And they're saying, oh, well, it's been around for forever. And what do you do? Are you eating this? Eating this? Oh, we don't eat this. No. You're looking at the biggest supply of goat feed. And even the goats don't eat it now. And they're in the same fantasy world as you are. But if we are taking Salicornia, we press the juice out, we put it in the goat's milk when there's a little lamb, and the lamb will learn how to eat it, and from then on you can feed them on Salicornia. We're doing that with 40,000 goats in Eritrea.
Yes.
Now if we're doing that in Eritrea, we can do it here. And now this is how much fantasy is that and how much reality is. How much time does it take us to do it? It takes us 1 day to harvest, press, and 1 goat, and I think you can find the goats here, and you can find the lambs here. And you need a little milk bottle. You need a little bottle to feed the goat. That's it. In 1 day, you can see how you can have an avenue towards the solution of the goat problem. But you need to realize that there's some science behind this, because you're looking at Salicornia, which has the right oils, and that means that you're going to get much better milk later on, which is again one of the problems on the island, because your genetic degeneration of the goats has come to a point that your goats produce not even half a liter of milk per day. Now, if you have only half a liter of milk per day, it's no wonder that the owner of the goat lets the goat run around.
Yes.
If on the other hand, by giving it better feed, we're going to have 4 liters of milk a day, and no one wants that goat to run around. That goat is going to stay close here. So,
But then there will be, there maybe be a problem of goats that people are going to steal them.
no, well, you're finally going to put them behind a fence. You're finally going to pay, and if you get 4 euros a day, sorry, 8 euros a day for your milk, that means that when you get so much for your milk, you're going to protect them. You're going to put a little tag on there. You're not going to do that for half a liter and making some cheese. You cannot afford it.
Yes.
But if you know how you can use your local resources. Now, to me, the Salicornia, I've worked with Salicornia for 25 years around the world. And to me, it is a surprise that the local Bonaireans actually look at it, walk on it, enjoy it, and don't use it.
Yes. Yes.
And so, and I'm saying, and now you're unfortunately on the equator, and so that means your ribbon tide is only 30 centimeters. So we're probably going to have to put a little bit more salt water on your beaches so that you can have more salicornia. When you're in Eritrea and you have an ebb and tide of over 1.5 meters, well, then you're going to have a very easy fertilization of your but seashores. But what are we using? We're using a seashore that doesn't generate revenue, that is no one's land. We're generating one where never anyone saw any value in, and you're converting that into something that can help solve your goat problem. What you need is you have to inspire with things that are surprises.
Okay.
Well, let's not forget Spielberg, Indiana Jones, his great success as a complete shift from movie making in the past. Surprises, surprises, surprises. And the surprise comes and more and more and more and more surprises follow. And as a result, we're watching the movie over and over again. What we need in life is we need to turn life back into surprises. We have made life predictable. We have made life laid out. Push a button, instant gratification, go on the internet, buy and sell. No, you have to bring children back to the world of surprise. And surprises that is good ones and bad ones. There are not only good ones in this world. But this is how we create resilience in society. You know, Bonaire needs resilience. The resilience is your capacity to be flexible. So when the bad time hits, you know what to do.
Yes.
And that means that you better know your own resources, what is within reach. Just imagine the following. If you have the coffee, espresso, you have a coffee waste.
Yes.
On 100 kilograms of that coffee waste, I can generate in 1 year $780,000 revenue. 100 kilograms. What is 100 kilograms? 100 kilograms is nothing. 100 kilograms is absolutely nothing. It is so little that, but how can we convert it into $780,000 in revenue a year? Because you Bonaireans are importing mushrooms at $20 a kilo.
Yes.
Now on the coffee, I can grow the mushrooms right here. Cheaper, much cheaper, and I can generate them with something that's already here. Now, that is the kind of inspiration. Now we've set up already more than 300 companies along those lines. Not in Bonaire yet. But it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It is hundreds of cases like this. And when children and young people are exposed to that, they will take initiative. Because we are very often still in the mode of protecting and saving. That's good, but not good enough. Because we've been protecting and saving for years and we keep on losing.
Yes.
So we need to do better. Keep on protecting and saving and generate more revenues from those available resources, so less and less people will be tempted to actually pillage the environment. We always have to start with what we have.
Yes.
That is my philosophy. And one of the most stable components of a society is your culture, your tradition. And now, let me go back to one I've discovered. I mean, there are 400 native plants and trees on this island,
Yes.
and 200 are medicinal. Tell me, where can I get in this hotel medicinal stuff? I can't. I mean, who's missing this? Now, I have met people who know how to do that, and who have the knowledge.
Yes.
They've just not done the next step. And so what we're in need of is, on one hand, the discovery of all the opportunities, which, like medicinal plants, is very much embedded in culture and tradition. And the people who as slaves had to come here, they had to discover this because they didn't have any social security and they didn't have medical treatment. So they had to figure out how these plants were useful to them because that was the only thing they had.
Yes.
And so as a result, the culture and the tradition of the slave who had to survive led to a tremendous wealth of knowledge on the medicinal quality of so many plants and veggies and fruits and so on. And so therefore what we're now in need of is to kickstart. You know, we have this website on the internet called Kickstarter.
Yes.
You know, sometimes you need to get a little kick to get started,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And I think maybe a few people are needed to start kicking here and there a little bit. Not too hard, but serious and positive. Because unless you kick the start, when your engine is stopping, you need to push it.
Yes.
If it doesn't go like this, then you better push it. So we need to sometimes push.
So you're a big kickstart here. pushing things forward,
and
inspiration people.
and maybe I'm kicking in other places as well. You know, but the key is that we are in need of that.
Yeah.
And that is the dialogue between the migratory bird and the native species. You know, I'm the migratory bird, as you can imagine,
Yes.
and there's the native. But sometimes that dialogue will give clarity on a lot of things that we knew before, but we didn't see
Yes.
with clarity. And you know, that's why I say blue economy is nothing new on this island. Blue economy is probably how the people were living here a generation ago, or 2 generations ago. It was the normal way of operating and living. But then we fell asleep. Then it was so easy. Then everything was just imported. Then everything was just available. And somehow the money was there. But when you have 65% of the people living in poverty, you have no right to continue that way.
No.
Because sustainability, the biggest enemy of sustainability is poverty. There are dozens of opportunities, but perhaps the most important opportunity is to finally get, first of all, a handle on your goats.
Yes.
Finally get the goats organized.
Yes, the goats are a big thing.
And when you're organizing the goats, why don't you organize the sheep at the same time?
Yes.
And I think if we can start with goats and sheep, we're on a good track. Step first. Second, this island has been deforested dramatically and is suffering from it. And therefore I think there is a need to reforestate, to regenerate the forests on the land and in the sea. The corals have to blossom again and the trees have to grow again. There's no other way. This island has a vocation to be a paradise. And the paradise will never be unless the trees stand again and the corals flourish again. And that means you only have to do 25 million corals. You already have done 5,000
Yes.
and you know they work.
Yes.
Now let's set up some nurseries here and let's start the business of nurseries. Because you're doing it already.
Yes.
But 5,000 is a great initiative, but let's get to the 25 million. And trees planting, we just met Sam, who just has 1,000
Oh, nice.
trees, and you know, and Sam is great with his
Yes.
1,000 trees, but let's get 20 million,
Yes.
you know. And since we have the first 1,000, let's now go on to the million. I mean, and it's not difficult. But the key thing is that we realize that when we re-establish, and we have the power as human beings to do that, when we establish the ecosystems that we help destroy,
Yes.
we're going to put nature back on its track, on its evolutionary path, as the way it was for millennia. And we have the human intelligence. The human intelligence is 1, recognizing we've done something wrong, and 2, knowing how to correct it and do better than before. And I think unless we combine those efforts, now that is something that kids will like to listen to, particularly when the young children realize that my dad doesn't know this. My dad has no clue how this works, but I can.
Yes.
And I believe that is part of the dynamics that we have to generate. But in summary, get a handle on your goats and get your forests back is to me 2 of the main building blocks of more than 30 other initiatives that I see.